everybody, welcome back to another fun and exciting pre-algebra class. Today we'll be in lesson 10.4. We'll be talking about dividing polynomials. Last lesson we talked about multiplying polynomials. This lesson on how to divide them. It is on page 491, page 491 in your books. Go ahead and look down here at the screen. Really, there's not much explanation to this. You're just going to have to kind of watch me do it. There's not really any steps. You're just going to have to follow along and try to practice as I go. My goal is to try to make this under 10 minutes long. Let's see if I can do it. You'd be like, no way, Mr. Steve, you can't do it. All right, challenge accepted. All right, here we go. We're going to divide this polynomial. So basically this polynomial up here by this monomial down here. And here's what we really want to do. We want to really treat this like it's three separate problems. So we're going to treat this term, and then this term, and then this term like they're 1, 2, and 3 separate problems. Now I'm going to rewrite this just a little bit differently than it's written now, and I think that's going to help you. So the first one is going to be 16c cubed over negative 2c. And then we're going to have this next one. You can write it kind of however you want to here with the signs. I kind of just like taking the actual signs with it. So in other words, negative 10c squared over negative 2c. So basically you're taking all of those signs and putting it all together into one thing. And then the next one is going to be negative 2c divided by negative 2c. Okay, so what we want to do first is right here, this first one. We're just going to kind of do each one of these separately. So we're going to say, okay, 16 divided by negative 2 is really what we have, and we have a negative 8. And you might say, well, I want to just, cancel this to an 8 and this to a 1, and I want to have a negative 1 down here. You could have a negative 1 down there, but whenever you have a negative, the negative can really go with either one, the numerator or the denominator. In other words, negative 1 over 5 equals 1 over negative 5. There's no difference between those fractions right there. It also equals negative and then like 1 over 5 where the negative is in the middle. As long as you have a negative somewhere in your fraction, it's the same fraction, okay? So typically in fractions, we write the negative sign either out front or we write the negative sign in the numerator. Try to keep the negative signs out of the denominator as much as you can. So what we want to do here is basically divide 16 by negative 2, and that's going to give us a negative 8. And this is going to cancel to a 1 down here. C3 and C1, so you subtract, and that's going to give us a 3 minus 1 is a C squared. That's going to give us a 1. 1 times 1 is 1. So that's over 1. Here in this blue one, we take the negative 2, goes into negative 10, and that goes 1 time, and that goes 5 times. And you might think, where did the negative go, right? Well, negative 2 into negative 10. A negative divided by a negative always gives you a positive. So that's that positive 5. That's where that came from. Negative times negative equals positive. So we have a positive 5. So we have a plus 5. And then this right here is going to give us a 2 minus 1 is going to give us a 1, or just C over 1, because this cancels to a 1. 1 times 1 is 1. And then here, notice we have a negative 2c times a negative 2c. And what happens here is that just cancels to a 1. That cancels to a 1. C cancels to a 1. C cancels to a 1. Everything cancels right there. And so here, and this is going to be a positive because we have negative, negative, right? So that's going to be a positive 1 over 1. We could rewrite this to look a little bit better. Basically, all of our denominators are 1s, so we don't need the denominators. So we have negative 8c squared plus 5c plus 1. And that would be your answer to that one. Is it complicated? A little bit. Is it, outrageous and so it's so hard nobody can do it? No, take it step by step. Take it piece by piece. So the idea is at the beginning, we want to take the original that they give us and we want to break it down into 3 parts. Okay? So take it and break each one down. If it's 4 terms, then break it into 4 parts. If it's 2 terms, break it into 2 parts. And then afterwards, once you solve it, you're going to break it back down into one solution. So you're going to go from 1 to 3 and then from 3 to 1. It's the easiest way to do it. Now, there's other ways you could do it. Some people do this. Let me kind of show you an alternative solution for this one. Erase some of this stuff so you can see it up here. And some people just from right here, they do it. And so they're like, okay, -2 goes into 16. That goes 8 times. So they get an 8 here. And then c goes into c squared. And then they go 2 goes into 10. -2 goes into 10, +5. And so they solve it all from right here. If you can handle that, great. I just think it becomes a little bit confusing when you're trying to do all this different stuff. Here's what's really going on. You want to be honest? It's almost like you're distributing this -2c to each one of these. Okay, we distributed with multiplication, right? You're distributing with division. It kind of works the same way. So, however you choose to do that is fine, but you have to make sure that you divide each one separately. Okay, so there's 3 problems there, not 1 problem. All right, let's go ahead and do this one right here. Notice that this time we only have 2 terms. So you have a term here, and then you have a term here. So this one we're only going to have to break into 2 different problems. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. We'll do this one first. So we have 3x to the 5th y over 24x squared y. Notice we could put a plus sign right here between those, and we get 8x squared y cubed divided by, again, this same denominator, because we're kind of like distributing that denominator to both of those, and then y. Okay. All right, so now what we want to do is we want to just work through this. We want to just do what we have been doing, divide the numbers. Notice here we're just reducing. So that's going to reduce to a 1. That's going to reduce to an 8. So you're going to get 1 over 8. And then you're going to do these numbers. The x to the 5th is bigger, so our x is going to stay in the top. So we'll get x up here. 5 minus 2 is 3. That cancels to a 1, so basically 8 times 1 down there. And then we have a y and a y. Anytime we have that, we get a cancel to a 1, so that'd be a times 1 and a times 1. We could simplify that out. 1 times 1 is 1. We don't need to write it, so that becomes an x cubed. And 8 times 1 times 1 is 8. Okay? And so that's our first fraction. And then we could write our plus sign between those. And then we would go ahead and reduce this one out. Now, notice that this one is going to give us a different denominator. Notice how this one up here kind of all came back together and gave us, the denominator was 1, right? And so we were able to kind of join that one back together. We're not going to be able to do that with this one because look what happens with this denominator. When we cancel here, we get 8 goes into 24 3 times. So our denominator over here was 8, and our denominator over here is 3. So that's a problem. So we put our 3 here, and we can't combine those fractions because we have a different denominator. So we'll put this plus sign in between them, right? And then we'll just kind of cancel it out. So that's a 1 up there. Notice we have an x squared and an x squared. That's going to give us a 1 and a 1. That's just going to kind of cancel out to 1 and a 1. And then we have our y cubed and our y to the first power. So subtract there. And we're going to get y squared up top. And we're going to cancel to a 1. So times 1. So now go ahead and just multiply that out. 1 times y squared gives us y squared. 3 times 1 gives us 3. Your solution to this problem is going to be x to the 3rd over 8 plus y squared over 3. That's as far as you can go with that one. You know, there's no common denominator, so we can't combine that one back together. That one has to stay apart with two separate denominators. You know, I tried my best to get it under 10 minutes. You know, hopefully you were happy with that. And I know that some of you are like, yes, finally a short video. Yeah, I know, right? Here's the problem with this video. This video is somewhat complicated, even though I only did a couple of problems. So more than likely, you're going to need to watch that one a couple times as you're going through your problem. You're going to get to these situations. You're going to be like, oh, I don't remember what to do. Scroll the video back, watch it again, and try to learn what to do in each different situation, because you're going to have negative signs in there. You're going to have, sometimes it's in the numerator. Sometimes you're going to get different denominators. What do I do? When do I join it back together? When do I not? So watch that video again, go through it, and make sure that you understand all those different things going on there. All right, that's all I got for you. Hope you have a good one. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.